Rush Hour podcast. Somber week on tech, right? Like we heard a
Yeah.
lot of layoffs. We're going to go over that today. The AI apocalypse, is that what we're calling it? Jack Dorsey puts out a memo, pretty telling his thinking around laying off 40% of his staff there at Block. We had more layoffs to discuss across the board and kind of what we're hearing out there in the world. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the global intelligence crisis memo that went out earlier this week, which also tanked markets. Not the greatest news. And we're going to finish it off with, how we should be thinking about this. I think a little on the bright side, like what are the things you can do to sort of navigate this weird era that we're in or about to enter, and we'll try to keep it positive. So let's
Yeah.
start with Jack Dorsey's memo and him laying off 40% of what used to be Square, now Block. Tell us
Yeah.
about it.
So unless you've been living under a rock, the question has now come up, is the AI apocalypse actually here? And like TW said, Jack Dorsey just cut 4,000 jobs from Block. Block, as people may know, includes Cash App and Square, I think a few other companies as well. And he's basically saying AI has made this possible. So, essentially what he said in the memo was that this is entirely driven by AI driven gains in
Yeah.
productivity and efficiency, and that AI really is fundamentally changing how companies are built and run. And the reason why you got to care about what Jack Dorsey says about this is because this is a guy who's created a lot of really successful companies, right? So he has a strong vantage point on what's actually happening with the space, and what he predicted in his memo is that most companies are late, but they're ultimately going to get to the same decision. They're going to make the same structural cuts. They may not do it within the same cadence, but it's going to happen because of competitive pressure and because of how quickly these tools are iterating and becoming more effective. And so some economists right now are warning that once a few companies cut headcount successfully, the market forces could result in broader layoffs. And the market's rewarded Block for this move. The stock jumped double digits today, like in pre-trading. Pre-hour trading, it was like at 20% up. I think it ended a bit lower than that, but the market's like this. At the end of the day, it's about increasing shareholder value. And the way
Yep.
to do that is to increase your margins. And the way to do that is to reduce headcount. So we've been talking about this ad nauseum. This was like a particularly tough week, but,
Yeah.
my sense is this is just where we're at right now. This is
Yeah.
just the nature of the market and tech jobs and white collar work. And every 2 months, when these research labs come out with a new model that can eat up more software, do jobs about as well as a human, then you're gonna see the downstream impact of this.
Yeah. It's pretty scary because, I mean, eBay also laid off, which is, not surprising, a smaller percentage, but 6%. And it's one of
Yep.
those things you just see it coming. It's just like, all right. And I'm sure a lot of companies are out there planning their layoffs and thinking about cutting and maybe even using it, AI as an excuse to tighten up their ship. So it is alarming. This is just a time. I can't remember a time where it's been like this because the other side of it is what I that's where it's confusing. It's not like we're getting rid of trains and adding automobiles. This
Yeah.
feels like we're adding a workforce that is in the cloud. So it's a little scary. Yeah.
How do you feel about, all right, so obviously Block, Jack Dorsey is saying, hey, we're actually seeing effective gains here, and this is a prudent strategy now because we actually just don't need as many people and we can be more efficient and,
Right.
and do better as a company. Like, okay, let's say we maybe believe him, but if you look at economists, you look at other folks, I think MIT did research, a lot is saying, hey, companies are trying these AI tools, but they're not actually seeing the productivity gains
Right.
that they thought. And actually, this is just cover for mass layoffs that they want to do anyway because of overhiring during COVID. So
Yes.
how much of you think is that versus the actual like AI efficiency driven story
I
that
think
having sold?
if you zoom out and look, s- what Jack Dorsey cut was really back to 2019. He let percentage wise, they grew 40% of their staff between 2019 and today, and he let
Mhm.
those go. So maybe the company grew and you don't need as many people. I think it'd be obviously a lot more alarming instead of 4,000 if he cut 9,000 people. He left 6,000. If he had 600, you'd be like, oh, we're onto something
Mhm.
really scary. But he let go a lot of people, and I kind of understand what he's saying. It's a combination of, hey, we're just getting tighter. people are getting more efficient. I'm going to squeeze everybody a little harder for more work. It's kind of like when Elon got into X and
Yeah.
just had a mass layoff and said, "We'll figure it out." And in his memo, he said, "Hey, maybe I got some of this wrong, and we'll need to hire some more." But for the most part, he went aggressive in the sort of layoff process, and then he's going to see where we'll see what happens. And I think that's prudent. I mean, you're ultimately report to your shareholders, and when it comes to
Yeah.
profits, laying off people and being conservative with your resources is great for shareholder earnings, right?
Yeah.
So
It's kind of
we're
the
not
tried
great
and
for,
true
yeah,
tactic
not great for
that
employees,
works.
but
No.
definitely alarming to say the least.
Yeah. Do you think we can get back to a market where it's like an employee driven market where kind of, right now we're kind of right now we're in a market where employers hold all the keys. Do you think based off of AI and the speed at which it's changing the nature of business that we can get back to that where kind of employees are,
It's really
you know,
tough. It's gonna
controlling the
like
market?
we talked about it. There needs to be a sort of counterculture to like I'm off the internet culture, which I think is really hard. We've kind of grown accustomed to all these tools and all of the amenities that we have now. I think it's gonna be hard for us to come back. Like the thing that AI can't replace is people skills, soft skills, like relationship building, creative. Those things are still lacking for now. So
Yeah.
it seems like that's where most of the jobs and things are. I want to say safe, but more reliable.
Yeah. And those kind of in the role and nature where you have like human touch points. It's interesting because I was talking to my barber yesterday. I was like, "Hey man, you're gonna be all right for a while doing what you're doing
Yeah,
because obviously if you're doing something like going to a barber, right? It's about the cut, but for like male barbers, it's a bit of therapizing, it's a bit of
yeah.
back and forth
And you,
banter. You're not really gonna do that with a robot, or
yes, you're not.
maybe some people will, but that's not kind of part of the culture of like why you do that. So I think those type of
You better learn to cut some hair, right? You learn to cut some hair, or maybe buy a lot of hats. I don't know. Yeah, it's
yeah,
scary. I really I don't know where we're going with this. Like we talk about it every week. Like it's
yeah,
really hard to zoom out and say, all right, here's where we're going to be in 5, 10 years. This it just feels very, walking on eggshells, like we just
yeah,
don't know what the next turn is. And when I zoom into my world in my life, I think, yes, these tools aren't great. You can't totally rely on them. They kind of hallucinate. You really got to know them. They don't solve all the problems, but boy, they are really helpful. And in the exponential growth of them, what it turns
yeah,
into is really hard to tell, right? Like for everyone.
yeah,
So, it's these companies that are out here really trying their best to create new AI tools and AI platforms that are really out here basically eliminating jobs, and it's pretty
yeah,
wild. It's scary.
yeah. So I think that's maybe a good segue into the next topic, which is around that research report that was written. And basically the premise is, what if being right about AI is actually bearish for the economy? So
Right.
if you haven't seen this research report, which I actually maybe we can put in the show notes the
Yeah.
link to the report. But basically, Citrini Research, which was a relatively unknown, I think, research firm. Maybe I don't know if you knew about it. This is the first time I had heard of them. But basically, they wrote this kind of fictional macro memo. It's supposed to be from June 2028. It describes a global intelligence crisis, and it's basically driven by abundant machine intelligence. In the scenario, 2028 employment is at 10.2%. The S&P 500 is down 38% from October 2026 highs in this scenario. The markets initially rallied on all the AI-driven news, but then it drove margin expansion on AI-driven margin expansion and layoffs, which is kind of what we're seeing now. But the downstream impact of that was extremely negative. Basically, a negative loop forms where AI
Yeah.
gets better, companies cut white-collar jobs, spending, which a ton of consumer spending is from white-collar workers, spending falls, firms protect their margins by buying more AI. AI gets better, which leads to more layoffs. And it's just this kind of cycle that has no natural break. And so, I found the piece very, very fascinating, particularly some of the conversation around agentic tools and where it was essentially saying, hey, now like brand and your ability to, especially from a marketing perspective, right now, brand and your ability to do, copywriting, positioning and messaging and the way you show up to consumers matters a lot because you're interacting with humans. But in an agentic world where people are just deploying these agents to find the lowest cost, highest quality widget, right? and they're just going and they're reading reviews, and there's no kind of human in the loop of that, and you're really just marketing to other agents, or pulling information from various databases and sources. You see where that can have a huge impact on companies that kind of work in that area of arbitrage. There's a lot of businesses that do that. Talked about
Right.
stable coins kind of taking on, the uh, card processing fees. All these platforms are finding, real estate, like disintermediating those platforms, delivery apps, insurance, pretty much anything where there is some kind of arbitrage in like information, where that just becomes kind of going to the lowest cost, highest quality solution. And so I thought it was fascinating. I don't know if everything will kind of happen in that same time horizon, but I think the inevitable conclusion of all of these efforts is, at some point, the goal is that AI gets so good that any kind of work or services that are in front of where you're sitting down on a laptop, or anything that kind of digitally communicating information, you will not need a human in the loop at some
Yeah.
point. That is a crazy future.
Yeah, it really is. And then the Elon talks have been about human labor cost goes to basically nothing. And then the machine learning and the intelligence really is the cost of electricity and maintenance. And then you've just got costs of material goods for things you're buying. It's just going to bring the prices down. Hyper deflation, that just the trickle effect of all that is hard to figure out, right? Because then it's like, what does
Yeah.
that mean for all industries across the board? All the cost of everything goes way down. Then the part of that that goes down with it is profits too, right? Then it's like,
Yeah.
what are we doing as in people, or what are we buying? What money are we using to buy it with? All of that, all of those questions that are the thing that we're worried about. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like, do we depend on the government to come in and regulate this, or is this a global phenomenon that we're going to have to figure out because some other countries are going to have different set of AI problems than others, and how do we resolve? Like, it's a lot of questions out there, but it doesn't seem like it's right around the corner, though. It seems like it's farther than even in that memo. That seems, yeah, like you said,
Yeah.
the
It's
time.
interesting, right? Because it's like,
Yeah,
I agree. I think it's a little further out than the memo,
yeah,
but let's say it's only 5 years out more than that. Right? That's not that's still, within the next 10 years, which
yeah,
is
correct.
a wild thought. And I think it says a lot about, and a lot of the value that people get in their day-to-day lives comes from their work and
Yeah,
the contribution that they make to society through that. It's like, well, when all of that work is kind of automated and you need purpose, like that's the part that, intellectually I'm trying to square
yes.
a bit more, in terms of how everybody deals with that part, in terms of like, so much of human existence has been around kind of trading your skill set for some type of economic value. And when that is no longer the case, how do we, think of our value in society and what we do?
I mean, even I love sports. I was talking to some friends about how this plays out in the sporting world, but it's going to be, if all of those things costs go to zero and the profits aren't necessary and everything is agentic, then you look at these NBA, NFL, MLB superstar athletes that are getting massive paydays because of rights, essentially advertisers. Well, if there's no need to advertise anymore and those dollars aren't there, then
Hmm.
players, the cost of these players and the profits for these players are going to go dramatically down. Then it's going to be a question of, do you really love playing the game because it's not going to pay you much anymore? And then what does it look like?
Mm,
Those are questions we're going to find out. Like,
yeah.
does LeBron James play for 23 years if there's the salary is there, just a normal living wage? I don't know. Like, we'll find out. We'll find out,
I Yeah, we're gonna find out.
right? Those are the questions that we like. Ultimately, we're all gonna need to answer. Like, like you said, our existential crisis. What are we here for? What justifies our existence? It's weird because I think about it all the time. Like, in my life, how much of my time was just fighting to make a living, and then how much of my living was a part of who I am
Mm,
growing up. It's like hard to untangle that because you're like,
yeah,
hey, I'm manager of this is what I do, this is who I am.
yeah,
Even if it is for a year or two, and it doesn't last, it just feels that way when you're in it because it's 40, 60, 80, 100 hours a week you're spending your
yeah.
time on that.
And so much of our value as a society, particularly as it relates to kind of like American values,
Yes.
is tied into kind of what you do,
Yeah,
right? But it's interesting. A
absolutely.
lot of other countries, it's not necessarily like that. It's more communal. It's more
Yeah.
about who you are, a person and interests, et cetera. But I think it's going to be particularly as essential for folks in Western countries or ones that are very much like focused on capitalism and productivity because that's just in the DNA of society.
Yeah. I was thinking now we're about to have vacations where it's just not digital, right? We talked about this in our New Year's. What do we expect? A vacation where there's nothing, no internet, no digital. You hang up your phone and you go into
Mhm.
the, a resort and there's no, there's no ordering food. There's no, looking up stuff. It is
It's all analog.
human interaction is the only way to get things done. I could see that being a thing. Like really, like that feels right. That feels like an actual vacation now, right? Like you're not just holed up in a casino or room and playing games and getting Uber Eats delivered. You got to like talk to people and interact with them, and that seems like such a change in the way we live today. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah. So just wake up every day like, man, what is happening?
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
it's head spinning.
on the positive side, we talked about this too. Like this is an incredible time if you're a hustler,
Yeah.
if you're not just sitting at a desk 9 to 5 depending on somebody else. If you're willing to use these tools and get out there, it is incredible. Wouldn't you agree?
I I agree, and I kind of spoke to this a bit in maybe this last segment in a
Yeah.
piece that I wrote on LinkedIn this week, which is around the rise of the generalist
Yep.
in this era of AI. Essentially, what I argue is, most of the years up until really, I feel like it's really up until this year. I mean, we were seeing some strides, ChatGPT, et cetera, but with Claude Code, with Open Claude, with these agentic systems really starting to, increase in value and capabilities. It's allowed people to get these skills to start to achieve these specialized skills that were really hard won through kind of deep industry expertise over for a decade to being able to do really, really good at prompting, bringing in different contexts, and then being able to have output that gets you to 75 to 80% of the way there of someone who had that deep expertise. And I
Yeah.
think that the shift has created this new power dynamic where, execution is being commoditized, but judgment and prioritization are not. So you can have it's kind of better to have a broader base of understanding of different ways that in which a business is run as opposed to have one very deep vertical expertise
Right.
because then you kind of see the forest of the trees and have a cross functional lens that provides a competitive advantage. And a lot of my career, I did a lot of things. I was considered like an athlete. Oh, I can just put Justin this problem, he can figure it out. And there was a period of time where I felt like it was a pejorative thing, like it was a negative thing. You're not super deep here. But now I'm so grateful for having all
Yeah.
those opportunities because I can get plugged into a lot of different problems
Yep.
and challenges that a business has and have seen it from a lot of different angles and can pull in the right resources if it does need specifically like super deep knowledge, but otherwise can kind of figure it out like 75, 85% on my own. And I think that's, you had a broader knowledge base. If you're willing to use these tools and to make yourself more efficient and really lean in, there's, to your point, there's kind of no better time to have that type of mindset.
Yeah, if you're a hustler at heart and want to figure things out and are willing to get your hands dirty and learn and fail, this is a great time. You get out there and just figure out, build apps, build experiences, build websites, and get in there and figure it out. Reach out to people, build tools that will reach out for you, and really go and see if you can find product market fit on something. It's pretty cool
Yeah.
of all the possibilities that are out there. And, obviously none of them are going to last forever. But I feel like getting in there now, if you're a 9 to 5 type of worker right now and wondering, how do I prepare? I think it is that. I think you got to get your side hustle on and figure out,
Hmm.
put when the kids go to bed or when everyone else is asleep, it's time for you to like take those ideas that you have in your head and try to execute on them and learn.
Yeah.
Even if it don't amount to anything, going through that will probably really help you unlock number one usage of tools and three like, the general. You're gonna have to think of things where you normally wouldn't have. because I was similar to you. I was, starting out my career was like very niche things. Like I'm going to do ads, I'm going to do email, I'm going to do push notification, I'm going to do apps, da da da. And eventually, you build up this, sort of generalist businessman, and now just your general manager of all of the things.
Yeah.
But if you're just starting out, you got to go and dig and figure out all of those things on your own and bring them to the table, which is doable now, though, right?
It's doable now. You can listen, man, between these tools and the information that's out there on like LinkedIn, and you can your stack can be LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, using these AI tools, and you can learn and you can be very dangerous at a
Yes.
lot of in different areas if you're willing to put in the time and if you're curious. And I
Yeah.
think this is a time of people who have a learning mentality, people who are just have insatiable kind of curiosity to kind of figure different things out. And if you have those things, all you need to do is kind of learn a sales skill set, which you can develop over time, and you're cooking, man.
Yeah,
And
and honestly, like, even the sales piece, having AI create a bunch of different I mean, you just gotta learn how to test it, right? Like, create a bunch of drafts, start setting them off, getting response rates, put them back in, seeing what works and what
mhm.
doesn't, and tweak, and just use these systems to your advantage. You don't need a data scientist anymore. You don't need a bunch of analytics. You can use what you have at your disposal with all these tools, and for 20, 30, 40, $50 a month, you can get pretty far. I would say for those that
100%.
are, "Oh, I'm screwed. They're gonna take my job and I'm gonna be homeless." No, no, no. You need to, like, get in here and try to think of something silly, and run with it and see how far you can take it. Because I think
Yeah.
that's where everyone's gonna be.
We're steeped in this space, being in Silicon Valley. Let's say that you're out there and the last time you tried ChatGPT, like in earnest, was around the time when it came out, and you just made kind of like a funny story that was like, look at this concept. Imagine if Lord of the Rings and The Simpsons were, like, let's see what that concept looks like, right? If that's your last touch point, I would just encourage you, please spend some time looking at the power of these tools. Right now, if I think about my own business, I'm able to take connectors that I have through Claude, connect that to my Notion, take all of my notes, have it auto populate in there, put together dashboards and databases to do an overview of my business at a CFO level overview, take a look at all the different challenges the stars I work with and help me conceptualize how to support them in themes and things that would have taken me 20 hours of work now take two. And I have a team of basically five kind of digital employees who can support me. And this is accessible now. Like I am not even saying I'm a crazy expert on this, but if
Right.
you even do just some basic amount of research and playing around, you can get to a pretty competent level very quickly and you can be cooking. And the reality is now is that there is no bastion of safety within white collar work anymore. There's no like guarantee of a job just because you've been performing it well for a long time, even if you're the best at that's existed. And to a lot of people, you can think of this as something that should drive kind of like fear, or you can think of this is a huge opportunity for me to go out and have all the tools of an entire 20-person team at my disposal. If I had that 5 years ago when I had that idea, like how would I execute that? Or how could I convey this knowledge and put together my own e-commerce, platform for it that I can build on my own and don't need to hire developers. I didn't know to do that. All these tools are at your disposal. It's just about time and your willingness to be curious and your willingness to continue learning.
No, that's right. I think there's just so many opportunities, but you have to, like, be proactive and get on it. This is not a time to, like, sit still and hope things are gonna change in your favor, because 'cause you're just gonna get farther behind, right? Like, this is a time to capitalize on it. It's just exciting. You should be motivated.
Yeah.
And for us, for me and you, it's invigorating, scary, but also invigorating. So I hope a lot of people have that mindset of like, "Hey, let's figure this thing out," versus throwing your hands up.
Yeah. And we'll be here. We're not technical folks, kind of like a lot
Yeah,
of you who I imagine watch us. And we'll try to
yeah,
break it down in ways that make it feel easier and let you know kind of what's going on here in the valley. But if we're like 7, 8 months, 12 months ahead of where things are at, we're just trying to forecast what we're seeing, and hopefully it's helpful. And hopefully you can kind
yeah,
of jump on some of these things and at least begin to explore, if not execute on everything.
yeah. I love it. It's a rough week. I appreciate everybody that if you made it this far, we're here for you. So ping us, comment below on what you're thinking, and we'll be glad to help. Or you can ping Justin or I on LinkedIn. Yeah, happy to help in any way, shape, form, and appreciate your time. We'll talk
as
next
always.
week. We'll have good news, right? We'll have good news next week.
Yes, I mean we got it. It can't get any crazier than this.
Yeah, I love it. All right, we'll talk soon. Appreciate you.
You too.